approximately 22 years ago, I noticed some things happening in the organization where I was working. I wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do, but I decided that I need to tell somebody about what I saw. It turned out, and I only learned this later on, that I actually blew the whistle on corrupt practices in that organization. And since then, it has basically become my life mission to work on the protection of whistleblowers. And I think that is really all you should know about me. Apart from that, as was said, I'm Natasja Holtzhausen, and I'm at the School of Public Management and Administration at the University of Pretoria. Therefore, a full disclosure, I do not come from your environment. I do not understand or pretend to understand the transport industry. But what I do understand is whistleblowers. And, for example, what happens to people when they decide to blow the whistle, when they blow the whistle, what happens, I almost want to say the aftermath of blowing the whistle. So, I am going to share with you a quote that I really like. Corruption is simply crime without conscience. Computers are not accountable. People are. Corruption can only prosper with a people's ignorance. So, in a lot of instances, people are not aware of what corruption entails. But I do not have to tell you, being in a high-risk industry, and you have had a lot of deliberations already today, in terms of corruption, and then also specifically what it is costing the transport industry, what it is costing your organizations. We always think that corruption is something that we can manage, and we always advocate for a corruption-free society. Now, I really think we're never going to get to the point where we are going to get a corruption-free society. But we could at least get to levels that would be tolerable. For example, and I use this quite often, I think we have become so desensitized to what the statistics are that now if you open a newspaper, in the old day it would have been the actual newspaper, and you see that they only stole, for example, embezzled, let's say, 50 million, we are so grateful because it could have been 150 million. And the reality is that in terms of the costs, there is a case in Gauteng, for example, where a hospital was supposed to cost 50 million. It has then risen after COVID to 500 million, and currently it's standing on 875 million that it is costing you and me, the taxpayers. And that is the reality with corruption. Corruption is a cancer, and we used to say that it steals from the poor. It doesn't only steal away from the poor anymore. It is literally affecting each and every one of us today. It eats away at governments. It eats away at the governance in your organizations as well, and the moral fiber. And obviously, it destroys trust. Because we don't trust, for example, in our governments anymore. But I can tell you, on good authority, that the government is really trying to work on anti-corruption that can work. But then we need partnerships. Now I'm sounding like a government official, which I am not, but I do work a lot with governments. I can tell you that there are a lot of honest, hard-working people in every industry and sector. So if we talk about whistleblowing, I think one of the most important elements would be, and this is SDG 16, having strong institutions. So how do we build strong institutions? So I only want to focus there specifically, and there I see there's a gun also on target 16.1. Bjorn, you referred to guns. But I want to focus specifically here on target 16.5 and target 16.6. Now, target 16.5 considers how can we substantially reduce corruption, prevention, detection, investigation, and I believe there are quite a number of investigators here as well, and then also the sanctioning of corruption. Target 16.6 that we have here focus on how do we build institutions that is in nature accountable, effective, and transparent. Now, getting back to government, and I hope you are familiar with this document. I should just do this. The National Anti-Corruption Strategy. Now, it's almost a moot point because we are getting closer and closer to 2030, but here it goes. It is built on 6 strategic pillars. And there is a National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council as well. And it asks to promote, for example, active citizenry, whistleblowing, integrity, all these beautiful things. And there are different working groups working on these specific pillars. Now, also looking at pillar 3, how do we enhance governance, oversight, and consequence management in organizations, but then also in line with supply chain, improve the integrity and credibility of the public procurement system. So that literally means that this includes all of the various sectors, including your own. Now, the whistleblowers. It is a much contested space. It is a difficult conversation to have, and it's a difficult decision to make. And if we consider, for example, some of the cartoons, and I think this is in part of the problem with blowing the whistle, is because of the stigma that we have associated with it, whether it stems still from impimpies or where we would, for example, as children be taught you're not allowed to snitch, because what do they say? Stitches for snitches. And then ditches for, you can make your own, come to your own conclusion there. And I think, yeah, if we look at these 2 cartoons, the first one, as far as I'm concerned, any whistleblower wants to sell out their colleagues and wreck their career is very brave. Now, what did you want to tell me? So is this the type of culture that we are creating within our own organizations? And the second one, and this is Mr. Proctor. He manages the hospital's whistleblowing support team. And as you can see, that is somebody with an axe, because that is the reality in so many instances where the whistle is blown. Now, personally, I don't particularly like the idea of the word whistleblowing. I am more in favor of something like disclosure. But if we consider the whistleblower, that is a person which would probably stand in fear of retaliation. Often when you blow the whistle, you are accused of exactly the same thing that you blew the whistle on. We also find that in many organizations there are a lack of awareness. So this could be, for example, what kind of whistleblowing programs are available within this particular industry? Do you have best practices where you can learn from one another? And this also means that there's limited communication, because if you're not aware of programs, why are we not talking about it? I always say we have to have courageous conversations. We also often find, and this links to the stitches for snitches, cultural resistance. And the cultural resistance can be within the organization or even the way in which we have grown up, in terms of, we're not supposed to speak out. And you're also not supposed to question authority. A lot of you are in managerial positions. I am going to ask you, do you know if your employees, the staff, are they fearful of you? Are they afraid of you? Is there a culture of fear within your organization? Then also considering all the legislation and the regulatory hurdles. There is the Protected Disclosures Act. It's been amended. I still don't think it really offers the protection that it's supposed to. Then also the difference in policies. Do you even have a whistleblowing policy in your organization? Is that policy working? I have gone through a whole system with the Gauteng provincial government, and I asked them, so would you blow the whistle? And they're like, no. So if you're not willing to blow the whistle, why would somebody else be? So if something is not working, and it is, for example, in line with the Protected Disclosures Act, then we need to throw it out and find something that will work. And that is really dependent also on an industry specific, but then also organizational specific. Just because they pass a right to rat law, it doesn't make ratting any less obnoxious. And that is how we see the person who makes the disclosure. You're the stitch, you're the rat, you are not loyal to the organization. Which brings me to a quotation by Richard Callan. I'm going to read to you. Whistleblowing is about basic issues which lie at the heart of human activity. It covers loyalty. Now that loyalty includes loyalty to the organization, the unit, loyalty to the peers, loyalty to whatever is in the work environment, but also loyalty to yourself as an individual, but also loyalty to your family. Because we know that in a lot of instances, with, for example, retaliation that takes place, it has a huge influence on the family as well. And the question of dubious practices. Previous speaker mentioned, and it's not in the same context, but do we speak the same language? Do we understand what dubious practices are? Do we have guidelines in terms of that? And it doesn't have to be pages and pages, because people don't want to read pages. It needs to be internalized. It concerns communication and silence. So communication in terms of what kind of programs are available, but then also what would be the processes. And then also it brings into bearing the decision to blow the whistle or also silence, to keep quiet. So think of your career. How many times have you observed something that is wrong and you decided to keep quiet? So just think about that for a moment. It's about practicing what one preaches and about leadership. As the leadership of your respective organizations, do you set the example? Do you stand in integrity? Do you support whistleblowers? And do you also create a conducive environment for people to thrive in? And I don't mean thrive as in corruption thrive. That's not what I'm talking about. It focuses on responsibility towards others and the accountability of those in charge. And remember that in the end, we are all delivering a service of some kind, and it's where various interests meet. So what are the role of whistleblowers? Primarily, they expose corruption. It could be through, for example, uncovering misconduct, also promoting transparency, and we always hear the words transparency and accountability. And those are quite powerful, because with transparency, we will also have a system where people are aware of what is happening, and this relates to the type of policy and the procedures that you would use to investigate, for example. So what is happening to, for example, the claim that I made? Holding the powerful accountable, creating public awareness and mobilization. Also considering, for example, how do we pretend or prevent harm to the organization and the wider community? Because we know that we have what is called a reputation. Every organization has a reputation. If I now just randomly think Department of Health, what do you think of the Department of Health? Or Home Affairs? You know, so there are certain perspectives that we have. So if I were to call any of these Amazon Global Security, what do you think of Amazon Global Security? And remember, that is part of the branding, and that is also how you are perceived. Now, whistleblowers in this industry has obviously many more, but they have blown the whistle in terms of, for example, fraudulent billing practices, safety and environmental violations, and then all kinds into the mix in terms of all the unethical behavior. So what am I calling for? I'm calling for an organizational culture where it is considered to be okay if you make a disclosure. So if you do, for example, disclose, and according to the Act, I should say, alleged wrongdoings. Now, what is that culture? That culture is the basic assumptions that we hold. And it comes over a long period of time. It's embedded in the organization. It's the way in which we do things. And it's also where we need to ask, what do we consider to be the right thing to do? And then also, when we have new people coming into the organization, they get exposed to that. So if you're part of an organization where there is, for example, a lot of corruption, that is what that new individual will get exposed to. And we don't want them to think that that is the way things should be done. The organizational culture is the heartbeat. It's the personality of the organization. So what is the personality of your own organization? What does it stand for? What do people think of when they see your organization or, for example, as I've said, Amazon Global Security? Do they think it's really security or what? Now, and I am mindful of my time, we do have a number of challenges and limitations. Now we know that we have bribery and kickbacks. So this could be, for example, where a bribe or a kickback is offered or paid so that you can secure a contract. And remember, this relates to the inflation of costs. Fraudulent practices like falsifying documents. You know, like people are also falsifying their qualifications, they are also falsifying documents. Misinterpreting information, unauthorized changes to orders. So it can be in a lot of areas in terms of supply chain. We will always find conflict of interest. This could be, for example, where you own shares in a providing company. Again, the lack of transparency. And remember, if we don't have transparency, if we're not open in terms of our procedures and the way we do things, a lot of practices can go undetected. And then also through influence peddling. How many of you have been exposed to influence peddling? Preferential treatment at the expense of fair competition. So what is required? We need that supportive environment, a culture with a policy that is working, guidelines that are working, considering the clear policies and procedures that is specifically to supply chain, and then also communicating what kind of protections are in place. Do you have reporting confidential or reporting channels? Is there, for example, a camera? Now, I am not the greatest believer in hotlines, and I also don't think that necessarily a suggestion box is the ideal thing to make disclosures, because people take their chips, their Simba chips packets, and they use it as a dustbin, and that is not the kind of disclosures that we want. Also, then looking at how do we train and aware. Are people aware of whatever is available in your organization? Support and protection. In terms of support and protection, people will need legal advice. Is there an avenue within the transport industry where people can get legal advice, but then also counseling? Because trust me, if you have not been a whistleblower, or if you don't know a whistleblower, you kind of go through the ringer. In terms of the reporting and the follow-up as well, when disclosures are made, and this also goes to communication, Investigations cannot be done thoroughly and properly if proper information is not disclosed, especially if it's anonymous disclosure that is being made. So, will the investigators actually be able to investigate the matter, the right place? And a lot of people will say, no, but I'm afraid that I'm still going to be identified. So if that is the truth, then how can we change this so that people would not be afraid? We want to be credible. So you cannot hear that a person from the investigation unit has actually asked bribes to make certain things go away. So that is also important in terms of credibility. We often find that we are asked about recognitions, rewards, and also incentives. Now, on the one hand, it could lead to more people making frivolous disclosures, but in the end, the proof would be in if it was a disclosure made in good faith. So if it's still in good faith, and there are countries such as, for example, Northern Korea, Georgia, the US, where people will get a certain percentage back from, for example, the monies recovered. So if it's led to, through the investigations, to successful recoveries, then people can get a percentage, and it differs in these various countries. Also then, how do we continuously communicate and the follow-up processes? So if somebody did make a disclosure, do they know what is happening to their case? Even if it is anonymous, and that is something that is quite tricky. So where do we go to make sure that we can follow up? Now, in the end, what I'm advocating for is prevention, detection, investigation, and then also to resolve it. Now, obviously, we want to see more people in orange suits, but that isn't always the situation. So how do we strengthen the supply chain integrity? Considering, again, what is universal within that particular organization or in the industry, what would be the common understanding of what is considered to be wrongdoing. Also, remember that in terms of prevention is better than cure. And I know it seems like, oh, yawn. We don't have to yawn. We have to think of how can we prevent it. Do we prevent it through open systems, open communication, making sure that we have similar understandings? Early detection is so important. And also, through early detection, it helps us to mitigate certain risks. And then also, added bonus, it helps to protect the industry's reputation. We need to ensure that we are in compliance with regulations. Now, here I'm referring to ethical standards, not all the other standards that the first speaker spoke about. And what are the ethical standards within your particular industry and organization? We want to be known as an industry that is credible. Even your own organization. Are you credible? Do people trust you? Do they think the stakeholders, if you were to ask your stakeholders what they think of your organization, would they say, oh, we can trust them? We know that they work very hard on anti-corruption efforts, whatever. We want to promote an ethical culture. That ethical culture that helps to make sure that the integrity of the industry is safeguarded, and then also a positive work environment. Now, that positive work environment is where somebody, for example, if they want to make a disclosure, they can, and they actually know how to do it, in which way they have to do it. And that is also why we need more robust systems. Now, in conclusion, leaders win through logistics. Vision, sure. Strategy, yes. But when you go to war, you need to have both toilet paper and bullets at the right place at the right time. In other words, you must win through superior logistics. Now, by chance, and I didn't know this, Bjorn referred to bullets. Now, firstly, so this is in terms of logistics, but in terms of the whistleblower, do not smear the one that blows the whistle so that there is not enough toilet paper to get them clean enough. The same applies to your own organizations. And then also, please do not shoot the messenger. Do not shoot the whistleblower. We don't use guns to shoot whistleblowers. We need to change that narrative because it is happening. Do you support whistleblowers? I support whistleblowers. And I can tell you that there are a number of organizations, and just something as small as this, and this is from the Whistleblower House, and there's Corruption Watch, there are so many organizations. You create awareness. If you need any assistance, you are most welcome to contact me. I do not charge. I do it for free because it is my passion. It's Natasja.Holtzhausen. Check the J. That's not a wrong J. I'm ja, not ha. And if you want to use my private email, it's at gmail.com. Or if you want to use my university, it's again natasja.holtzhausen@up.ac.za. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Natasja. I don't know if there are any questions right now that want to be put.
I just want your opinion, Natasja. Whistleblowers, I have a program in my company where I can protect them.
Okay.
Big time. That's in disciplinary inquiries.
Yes.
Mr. X were taking a ride in the back of a forklift. Cool, I can protect that guy. But something criminal happens and there's a criminal case open and needs to go to court. That's where my problems now starts to come in with the whistleblower, because now I can't bring him into court as anonymous. If you maybe pull a crap load of strings, maybe you can do that, but it normally doesn't work that way. What's your feeling? Does that happen often?
So, Nico, unfortunately it happens a lot, and it's something that we're also really struggling with in terms of, so you probably gathered I work a lot with the Gauteng province. So that is something that we are really struggling with in terms of why the whistleblower needs to go to court, because then it's not anonymous, that person is exposed, and then that person we know of people that got shot, so that is something that we are actually, at this current moment, we're getting a legal opinion on it to determine that. So on the one hand, we are saying that we need more communication in terms of what the investigators would need to be able to successfully investigate a claim. Let's call it a claim. Yeah. Yes, so it is, it happens, and it's one of my, currently it's literally one of my biggest headaches, is trying to find a reason, and I've spoken to quite a lot of people on this topic. So we're trying to get that there's enough evidence, but then also, and this is a sideline communication that I had with a lawyer, which said to me, but in South Africa, we need to remember that you are innocent until proven guilty, and then so if the claim was made against you, you still have the right to defend yourself and to ask the accuser certain questions. So there's a lot of I think also I spoke earlier about cultural resistance, but it's a lot of change that still needs to happen in this environment. But yes, when I find a solution, I'll let you know, hopefully. Or if you find a solution, let me know, please. Remember, we can't do any of this alone. Can't.
Any other question?
I just would like to really get your views on this. My personal opinion is that the criminal justice system has not changed for the last how many years. You go and give a statement, you have to give your address, how has your personal information been protected. If you're called as a witness to court, there's no protection, you're treated like everybody else. Don't you think it is high time that the criminal justice system look at how do they protect witnesses, how do they protect witnesses' information, and is it not high time that there's education to the public in South Africa as to what your rights are and how you should be treated as a witness when you go to court? Thank you.
Absolutely, I agree 100% with you. So I am of the opinion, and I actually mentioned it to Alida earlier on, that I think the whole criminal justice system needs a rehaul of how it's working. Because it's not working, as I said at the beginning. If something isn't working, we need to change it to something that will work. And the problem also is, and I think this is kind of unfair, if you, in the major cases, we've seen where people, they need to go into witness protection, and you lose your identity, you lose everything because you did the right thing. So we need to change that. So I really think and hope that there will be changes. So whether it's from all the constitutionally established bodies, but we need change, and we need to trust again. You know, if I go to the police and I do report something, that something's going to happen, and it's not, the docket isn't just going to disappear. And then some people say the dockets disappear, and then other people say in the court, they say no, but it can't because it's electronically captured. So there are a lot of contradictory statements as well. So no, I'm with you on this. Yeah.
Any further questions? Well, thank you, Professor Natasja.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you. Okay, it's a long day. I know that. Okay, I learned that I need to throw away my watch. I was not doing it. I'm sorry. I'm trying. I promise. But again, it's a long day. Okay, we fully understand that. We will a little bit shorten the break right now, and we will shorten a little bit the last session because we would like to go to the cocktail reception as soon as possible. I will say it again, drinks are for free, you know, at the cocktail reception. We have cocktails, we have wine, we have beer. If you don't have a driver, call your wife as soon as possible, or your partner, or your husband. You know, they're more than welcome to drink with you, because networking is the most important thing. Everything what happens in Emperor's Palace will stay in Emperor's Palace. Okay? Trust me. I'll give you one more statement before the break because I loved what you said about witness. You know, so I'm part of an artificial intelligence group, and we are looking at fake videos. I'm specifically not saying deepfake anymore, because only machines can find out if it's still a fake video, yes or no. I can create a fake video from you within 5 minutes, and nobody knows it's you, except a machine. A person cannot identify anymore it's a fake video. So that's where we are. I'm looking forward when the first politician is going in front of court and you see a video which is showing the politician. You know, so that's really. So let's have a network break. Let's be back at 4:10. And as I said, the last session will be very short. It's a 45-minute session max, and then we go to the cocktail, okay? 4:10. I see you there. Enjoy the break. There's coffee, there's everything, okay? Thank you.